Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we're going to talk about everything we know about 10th edition so far. This is all stuff coming from GW, not any rumors or leaks or whatever the case might be, specifically covering the articles GW has released. I haven't talked about any of them besides the Tyranid specific model ones really. I just didn't really have the time or the need to or want to do a video on each of the little articles individually. So I've wrapped them all up here. We're gonna try. Now, if you watch my videos regularly, I appreciate you, but you know I'm not great at getting straight and to the point sometimes. I'm gonna try that this time. We're gonna try and go for 10 minutes or less on all of these things. Likely it'll be 15 or 20 minutes, but we're gonna try for 10 minutes. It's the thought, right? The thought that counts. So if you are new here, I do suggest liking and subscribing to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. We cover a lot of 40K stuff. Specifically, I and our viewers have a love for the Tyranids, so we like to focus towards that, but we do cover a lot of generalist 40K things as well. And then members, we thank you. You can become a member and use all the various links in the description down below. They all help out grow this channel, and we appreciate you for everything that you do there. Now, with all that out of the way, let's start the timer now. Okay, actually, I'm going to give you the overview, and then we'll start the timer. So we are going to cover 10th, the overview. This is the overview. Overview of the overview. Army building, specifically look at the Tyranid rules that were released. We'll look at allies and agents in addition to other army building stuff. Universal special rules, something I love. And we'll talk about the weapons a little bit in that effect too. Characters, reserves, the vehicle changes, and hopefully monsters are changed with that too. Phase changes, which will be psychic and morale phase, and terrain. All right, here we go. Bad start. There we go. So the overview. So what we know, 10th edition is coming. New edition to 40K. They have been doing it every 3 years or so. So it's expected. It was expected that this was going to be coming. Is a new rules. Basically a reset. Your codexes will be invalid, though I have a feeling that they won't. They will be tweaked when it comes to the new codexes that come out. So your codexes will be invalid. There will be core rules and index data cards and stuff free for everybody to get those right away, similar to how they do it with AOS. And then when your codex comes out, it'll be a few extra rules and lore and fluff and painting and all that stuff that comes in the codex right now. So more free rules, hard to argue with that really. New Tyranids, they're the big baddies of 10th edition, so Tyranids are going to be getting the range refresh that we know like Necrons did, and then Death Guard did the edition before. Space Marines are going to have some changes. They're getting new models as well. They're also combining, it seems like Firstborn and Primaris are kind of losing that tag of, oh, these are Primaris, so they only get special rules, and these are Firstborn, so they only get special rules. So they're kind of muddying that water even more, maybe just getting rid of a distinction in most parts there. So that's cool. We also know that the tagline for this edition is simplified, not simple. So they wanted to streamline some of the rules. A lot of the codexes, the terrain rules, and some other things got pretty bloated when it came to playing 9th edition. And it was hard for a new person to kind of get into. It really took you a while before you had everything down. So they're trying to keep the rules similar, tweak what needs to be tweaked, but keep them so they're a bit more streamlined, but not dumbed down like you're playing a very simple game. So I appreciate that. Hopefully it works out how they are anticipating. The launch box is, the reveal to the launch box is coming April 29th. So this Saturday, I think, is when that actually works out. This is Warhammer Fest. I guess we don't know for sure the launch box, but they're doing the ability to play if you go to Warhammer Fest on Saturday. So I'm assuming we'll see all the box content by then. And we'll have more videos to talk about those and see all those new Tyranid models. Overview, probably used up half my time. Army building. So this is interesting. This was probably one of the bigger changes. Some people have split opinions on this. I say I wait to see the rules as a whole until I make true judgment on them. But subfactions, as we know, are gone. So for Tyranid players, High Fleet, Leviathan, Kronos, Jormungandr, Behemoth, poof, gone. You can still say you're High Fleet Behemoth or whatever, but you don't have specific rules to fit High Fleet Behemoth. It's an interesting change, but that is what it is. So now what it is replaced with a new style of detachment, and we'll kind of show you a little bit of that on the next page. But basically you pick a detachment, and that gives you, it kind of sums up your force org chart and your faction special rules in that detachment. So as you might have expected, force org charts are now gone. It's very straightforward. You pick one character. You can pick at least one epic hero or Lord of War, I believe is what they're referring to in that case. Still follow the rule of 3, so up to 3 of each data sheet at most, unless it is a battle line unit, then you get 6. I'm assuming battle line are your troop choices, so max of 6 of those. Battle size has been changed. You have now 1K, 2K, 3K, so Incursion, Strike Force, Onslaught as we know them. Combat Patrol, the 500-point game, is gone, but they're making a new game mode alongside this called Combat Patrol, and the idea is to pitch the Combat Patrol boxes against each other, and they will have modified rules for the units in those Combat Patrols to make them more balanced. I still don't think they're going to be balanced as well as I hope. Ones like the Tyranid Combat Patrol, if we don't get a new one, is going to probably wipe the floor with most of them because we have a Hive Tyrant in that, and most people don't get anything comparable to a Hive Tyrant, but we'll see. We'll see what's tweaked. I'm sure maybe they'll start refreshing a few of the Combat Patrol boxes, especially the Tyranids, because Gaunts are going to be getting an update, so maybe. And then character enhancements is now replacing relics and warlord traits. So pretty simple there. I think it could go well, but we'll wait and judge after. Some more army building stuff. Allies, that's always been something that's changed every edition. Allies as we know them are gone. They say, I guess, again, we'll wait until we see the full rules, but they have said assume that your force will be drawn from a single faction. Okay, we know there are some ways around that. The main combos that we typically see, Custodians like to bring a guard of some sort was a pretty common one to see. Tyranids and Genestealer Cult could still technically buddy together. One that is crazy, Dark Eldar and Eldar, as far as we know, those are no longer going to be allied, so maybe there'll be something special for you mixed Eldar people, but who knows. They did confirm a few remaining allies, so the Free and Dreadblades, so your individual knight that you could bring as an ally, that's staying. Chaos Demons in some form is staying as an ally for Chaos. Interesting, but cool. Brood Brothers for the Genestealer Cult are staying. And Agents of the Imperium. There is a chart. I couldn't find the exact picture when I went back to look for it, but there's a chart saying you have Retinue and Character Agents of the Imperium, and depending on your point size, you can take a number of those units. So those are going to be things like your Inquisitors, your Assassins, your RBTs or Arbites, weird, niche units like that most people don't play, in competitive at least. I should also note, I think a lot of these rules are based around competitive play. You will still have the option, if you're just playing with your buddy and want to do whatever you want, you can always do that. That's the awesomeness of 40K. Faction rules. So this is what I was talking about earlier. We're going to look at a few things. So specifically looking at the Tyranid one, this is one of their detachments. It's not the only one, but it's one of 3, 4, not really sure how many we're getting, but one of a couple at least. The hyper adaptation. So Tyranids, if you take this detachment, at the start of the first battle round, select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active for Tyranid units from your army until the end of the battle. Okay, so Swarming Instinct. Each time a Tyranids model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy infantry or swarm unit, that attack has the sustained hits 1 ability. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. You've got a hyper aggression that does various things, and Hive Predator does also various things. So that's just an example of these detachment rules you'll get. So this is replacing Hive Fleet Behemoth specific rules or Kraken specific rules. They're also kind of showed off some other things you get. So each army, like we said, your detachment rules, you'll have other army special rules. So this is things like Synapse for the Tyranids. We get that special rule as an army in addition, no matter the detachment you take. And there are also going to be stratagems, again, for every army to take, regardless of your detachment. And here's one example of a stratagem. It's from the Space Marines, but they did a great job cleaning up the strats. We know there are going to be less of them, and they're going to be ones that you regularly use, but the way they cleaned them up. You have the stratagem, you have the name, you have when it is used, you have the target, and you have the effect, just broken down easy like that. Actually, looking at this, this is a Gladius Strike Force strat, which is a detachment. So maybe you will have a 1 or 2 specific stratagems for that detachment as well. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about universal special rules and the weapons they have shown off. We're not going to get too crazy into every individual weapon or special rule they've showed off, just because there's a lot of them and I don't really want to go through all of them. If you want to specifically, you can look those up on your own. They'll all come out and it'll be great. But universal special rules is something I was begging since they got rid of them. It is so clean and so simple for learning. USRs, as call them shorthand, they're from earlier editions, and the way it was is that if it's a weapon or so Deep Strike, that's the one. Those of you who started in 8th and 9th edition 40K, or specifically 9th edition, you don't know what Deep Strike is as a true rule. Yes, you know, because us players who have played since 5th edition know what Deep Strike is, because Deep Strike was the rule. It was always set them up in the teleport homer, or they're buried underground, or whatever. And while it's fun and fluffy, really it was just another way to say they pop in 9 inches away. So to simplify it, they now have Deep Strike. So in your data card, you will see special rules and it will say Deep Strike. Now I don't think they'll put the Deep Strike, the actual definition of the rule, on the data card. That'll be in the core rulebook. So the core rulebook will have a page or a section of universal special rules, and it'll just say, here's the rule, this is what it does. If it's on your data card, you use this rule. So much easier, because now there's not confusion between factions of everything. It's just, I have this rule, my army does that. So we'll look quickly at the Melta rifle here. You can see it as a heavy, that'll be a special rule, and it'll be Melta 2, also a universal special rule. The 2 is the special part. So now what they can do is they can say the special rule in the rule book will say Melta X. And that essentially means it could be any number 1 to 50 or whatever it is. And it says, you can see down there at the special rule, it can just be denoted by it does extra damage based on the number denoted. So now, instead of writing in the damage of the thing, it does, this plus this at its half range. It's a Melta rule. It always follows the same rule, and you get this additional damage. Nice, clean, simple, streamlined among all the armies. I love it. Such a big one. I think, honestly, besides new tier models, universal special rules is my favorite thing they've so far showed off for 10th edition. Another big shakeup or return to the past, we have new character rules, and by new, sort of old character rules. Big changes. Again, this is done back to the way it was in old editions. Main things we know is that characters, most of their auras are gone. But with most of the auras being gone, they specifically said they wanted to get rid of these because you had cases of buffs stacking on buffs, stacking on buffs. Tier players, at least I did, took full advantage of this when it was our direct targeted buffs, because we could pass them around the whole army. You could easily give one unit of Hormagaunts 5 different buffs on them that just turned their average damage to terrifying damage. So they're trying to get rid of that, essentially. And the way they're doing that is now most characters attached to a unit. This is decided pre-battle, not army construction. So you'll buy your characters still separately, but when you go to set up deployment, similar to how you declare units in reserve or deep strike, transports, whatever that, you will declare what units your character are attaching to. So you have some flexibility there, which is good. You cannot join or leave that unit mid-battle. Typically, it is one character per unit that can join, so you can't put like all your characters on one big block of Terminators and have a Death Star. So they're trying to limit Death Stars in that way, which I do appreciate in a way. Sometimes there will be ways that those multiple can join, but they're going to be far and few in between, they said. And each character will have a list of unit types or specific units that they can join. So that'll be good. And then the character themselves, they often have a buff that they hand out to the unit attached. So an example would be this librarian. You have the Psychic Hood. This model, if this model is leading a unit, models in that unit have a Feel No Pain 4+ against psychic attacks. Also, Feel No Pain is back as a universal special rule. Thank you. So that's an example there. Some characters still don't join units. These are called lone ops. They will continue to have Lookout Sir in a modified fashion. I'm assuming the units like here are going to be assassins, Primarchs. They mentioned Tech Marines. I would have a hunch that Hive Tyrants might fit in that, but maybe they'll join Tyrant Guard automatically. Tervagon probably is a lone operative. Maybe it joins a unit of Termagants. Same thing with Old One Eye. Maybe he joins Carnifexes. It'll be interesting to see. These units, lone ops, will often still have auras because they can't join units. So that is how that one works. Speaking of reserves and deep strike a little bit, we have one really neat thing from Games Workshop to show off. Deep strike we know is a special rule, as I said. We don't know for sure though if it's 100% identical, the same 9 inches away. My opinion, if it's not broke, don't fix it, so hopefully there. And we also don't know yet about strategic reserves. But what we do know is this rapid ingress stratagem is going to shake up the movement phase and your opponent's turn. So I like this one a lot. The way it works is you use it on one of your units that is in reserve. And then at the end of their movement phase, so I believe it is after, we need clarification when the rule comes out, but after your opponent sets up their deep strike units, you then can set up a deep strike unit on their turn. This is very interesting, and I don't think GW has done anything like this before, but it could be very tactical. There are going to be ways where it'll be really good to do and poor to do, so you got to think hard. Make your opponent second guess. I think maybe putting them behind a building that is line of sight blocking so they can't be shot on your opponent's turn, because your opponent can't move after this happens. Will make them second guess where they put units, how they deploy things, because now you can have a unit on your opponent's board, and then your turn they can move closer, so they have 6-inch move. Now they're 3 inches away from something and then charge. Really spicy there, and I'm really looking forward to that strat. Okay, so now we have some vehicle updates. This is one of the bigger shakeups as well, is that vehicles are going to be much tougher, and I hope monsters are too. They haven't specifically clarified that, but I hope that's the case. T12 might be the new T8. We have a Rhino here that is toughness 9, and it used to be T7, so going up 2 toughness is crazy. If you looked at the heavy meltas earlier, you saw that they're strength 9, so strength 9 is now the new... I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes up. Things like the Repulsor and Land Raider, I think they showed off to already be toughness 12. Maybe our Tyrannofexes will join them up there at T12. I do like this because it does give you more... It gives you more room to define what really is the toughest. So maybe T12 is the highest it goes. Maybe you're going to have something that is T14. Who knows? But now instead of really going 6, 7, 8, 9, you're going to be going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and maybe higher. I think it'll be interesting. Once we have all of the units, it'll be interesting to lay out and see, okay, how vast does it really scale? And how do the weapons scale with that? Some new abilities, they have Deadly Demise, which I believe is just the explosion rule. And they have Firing Deck. This is a universal special rule, so Firing Deck X, in case of the Rhino here, is Firing Deck 2. And that basically allows 2 people on the inside of the transport to shoot in the shooting phase. So for Space Marines, that's super powerful because your regular tactical Marines can have your special weapon and a heavy weapon. And now those 2 weapons can just drive along in the Rhino and be shooting out. Interesting to see what kind of penalties they have to take, but still very good there. Also a whole bunch of transport rules we have learned. We've learned of assault ramps from the Land Raider, which we believe is the Land Raider moves, then your guys get out, and then they can declare a charge. So that will be nice. You have Rapid Deployment, which is here on the Torox, which allows you to use can disembark from this transport after it has advanced. Do count as having made a normal move that phase. They cannot declare a charge, but otherwise act as normal. So that's going to be terrifying for shooty armies, especially the Guard and their Toroxes. You have Mobile Command, which again, help out the Guard, is acting like a command vehicle, so people inside the vehicle can still give out their bubbles or commands or whatever the case may be. And you have a Fire Support, which is an interesting one here on the Falcon. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks until the end of the turn each time a friendly model that disembarked from this transport this turn makes an attack that targets that enemy unit. You can reroll the wound roll. That's a wordy one there, but essentially Fire Prism shoots, guys get out of it, also shoot. As long as the Fire Prism hit, then the guys who got out get to reroll wound roll. That'll be good for Guardians. Very interesting one there. Unfortunate Tyranids don't really have transports because we will not benefit from those new rules except for a pod. We have some phase changes. This will go kind of quick and it's going to be a decent shakeup. So far what we know is the Psychic phase is gone. So those of you who play Tau and Necrons, rejoice. Those of you who play Thousand Suns, Tyranids, Eldar, Demons kind of be like, oh, that's unfortunate. I personally love the Psychic phase. Grey Knights do as well. Now, all of your Psychic powers are converted to Psychic abilities and attacks that are right on the data sheet. Interesting that there doesn't seem like there'll be any more denying. They just kind of happen as is. So, wonder how the Grey Knights are going to take that. As you can see with the Weird Boy here, he has a Psychic ranged weapon and a Psychic melee weapon, so that's cool. Other units will have various things. So it could be a shooting attack, like Smite is now a shooting attack, and you might have some other Psychic bubbles that your characters do for protection or whatnot. The morale phase is also gone. This is a big one, especially for us Tyranid players. Now it's a battle shock test. Leadership check taken in the command phase for all units that are either under half strength, or if it's a individual unit model, like a character, if it's under half wounds. And they did clarify that this also happens to vehicles. So if a vehicle is under half of its wounds, it too has to take a battle shock test. And the way the battle shock tests work is you must roll equal to or above your leadership on your card on 2d6. So for a lot of things, we saw Termagants at leadership 8, which actually on 2d6 isn't that bad. You have to roll equal to or above. So on average, you don't get it, which is fine. But what happens when you are battle shocked is your objective control is now 0, so you can't control objectives. If a unit falls back, it must take a desperate escape test for every model in that unit. I'm assuming that's very similar to the strat Desperate Breakout, so maybe on rolls of 1 or 2, your model takes a mortal wound or something like that. And the controlling player cannot use stratagems that affect this unit. Other than that, they act as normal. So that's great. it's really annoying in the morale phase for things like Hormagaunts where they lose 2 models, and now that 2 models could turn into 6 models just because. I like this. I like this change. It'll be quick. It'll be done. Maybe it'll make rolling a little tedious throughout the game, but maybe not. So overall, great to the phase changes there. Well, great for the morale. I am still questioning the psychic phase. So finally, we have terrain changes. Now, terrain took 2 very different forms from 8th and 9th edition. 8th edition, you had very open rules to the terrain, not a lot of things that were hardline definition. Really was a shooting army's delight in that edition. And then you have 9th edition terrain, which if you play it very basic with crates, ruins, and forests like tournaments do, it's pretty straightforward. Forest still was always something everyone played slightly different, unfortunately. But there are other terrain rules that went very in depth. Everything you could think of they had in there, and that was, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, and GW saw that, too much. So they're kind of going halfway in between. I think they've hit a sweet spot with this. So again, similar, simplified, not simple. Benefit of cover is now just a rule. There's not all these different kinds of benefit of cover. It is just benefit of cover. And as you can see here, models can gain a measure of protection from terrain features. Each time a ranged attack is allocated to a model that has the benefit of cover, add 1 to the saving roll of that attack, excluding invulnerable saving throws. Great. Models with a save characteristic of 3+ or better cannot have the benefit of cover against attacks with an armor penetration of 0. I like this. As a Tyranid player, I like this a lot. It means Space Marines cannot just have 2-ups sitting in cover all the time on their basic dudes, which will make it very difficult to penetrate. Yes, if you have an AP4 weapon, they'll get the benefit of cover, so they'll still get a 6-up save, but that I'm okay with. It's the 2-up part that is going away, and I really do like that. Multiple instances of benefit of cover are not cumulative. Model cannot benefit from the same rule more than once at any time. Good, covering their bases there. So one other key thing they do mention with a lot of these terrains is it is now wholly within. There's none of this towing on to the terrain to get cover. It is your model's base has to be wholly within the terrain in order to maintain or get that cover. Which, I mean, it's straightforward. Is your model base on it? Yes, no. Then you get cover. Yes, no. So modified categories. Try and rapid fire through these. You've got craters. You get cover if you're wholly within them. Barricades, extra engagement range, just how they are now. You can fight 2 inches across the barrier. They also give cover if you're within 3 inches and the enemy shots are going through the barricade. Debris, benefits of cover if not fully visible. I don't like this one. This is the one that is like statues. So here I've got a little bit of terrain here. This, let's call this battlefield, that's whatever, battlefield debris. And then you've got the Swarm Lord here. Let's put it this way for camera angle. So if you are shooting me from your direction, you cannot see the Swarm Lord 100%, therefore he gets cover. I don't like that rule. Again, this is for things like statues and stuff. It seems a little too powerful. Now, granted, in tournaments, most people aren't using statues, so maybe you just don't play with them, but that one does worry me a little bit. But it is what it is. We have hills, so this is an old rule, so pretend this is a hill here. Sorry, I'll put it back here. Pretend this is a hill, and Swarm Lord is hiding behind the hill. If you can't see the Swarm Lord wholly, he gets cover. This one does make a little more sense because typically hills are much smaller, but still not one I've always been a fan of. woods. So now dense cover from woods is gone. There's none of that. You just gain the benefit of cover if you are wholly within the terrain and you're not towering. Towering is a keyword likely given to Titanic units, or maybe Titanic is gone and now they have a towering word. So think of your Hierophants and your Imperial Knights. They will not benefit from forests. They're too big. And finally, the one that is most important and still staying basically the same with a fun little tweak is ruins. That one, you gain your cover if you're wholly within the base of the ruin. They still block line of sight like they used to. They count as being, infinitely tall and you can't see through them. That's good. They added one little quirk on top of that, is if you are standing 6 inches above the target you shot, so vertically 6 inches above, you now get +1 AP. 6 inches is weird. I think they did this on purpose because most terrain is designed to be 5 inches high. So for us here, we have some buildings. I'll grab this one. So this is bottom floor, 3 inches up. And if we added another floor on top of this, this would be 6 inches up here. So if you were sitting up in the top floor shooting down, you'd get an extra AP. It's an interesting little rule, and again, it'll be curious to see how it plays out in your local area. That will benefit flying units very well. The first thing that honestly comes to mind are going to be suppressors from Space Marines, because those things had decent guns. They could fly, but they had low AP. So that'll be an interesting one. There's rumor that Tyranid Shrikes are going to have guns. So that would be interesting for us Tyranid players. Get them up high in a building and then have extra AP. They're going to be exposed, but they'll get cover. So who knows? Something there. But yeah, that I think is everything, right? Yeah. There's no way we did that in 10 minutes. That's probably closer to 20 minutes. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was everything we learned about 10th edition, not including the models. By the time this comes out, I think you will have seen a couple videos already. So on Monday, you will have seen my tournament review or recap from the Icebreaker GT. Recommend you really check that one out, especially the last 10 minutes of it or 5 minutes of it. Some cool results there. Then we'll probably have a video. It is rumored that the big winged beast for the Tyranids in the launch box is going to be shown off tomorrow. So that video will probably come out on Tuesday, and then this hopefully comes out on Wednesday. I think that should be everything. And then the following Monday, we'll probably have some review of what came out on the launch box for 40K. And we'll go from there. So awesome. That is everything we got. There's a sneak peek of the little schedule. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it if you use any of the links down in the description below. Thank you, members, and we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.